Okay,
We're good to go.
so are we ready to start?
Yep.
Okay. What happened to Peter?
He has conflicts. I thought it was perfectly on his record.
That's right. Call this meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Lynchburg Electoral Board on October 9th, 2025 at 4 p.m. Shall we have the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Dan, would you start the introductions?
Dan Pence, registrar.
Trish Jones, Deputy Registrar. Patty Gibbs, Secretary of the Electoral Board.
David Levy, Chairman of the Electoral Board.
Steve Troxel, Vice Chair of the Electoral Board.
Roz Webb, citizen.
Molly McClellan.
Jeff Rosner, Lynchburg Democratic Committee, authorized representative and voter protection liaison.
Thank you for being here in person and for anyone who is watching us remotely. Dan, can you put something else on the screen?
Yeah, I'm working on it now. Trust me. Trust me, I'm working on it.
Like, why can't the little picture be the big picture?
Okay, that didn't work. Let me see if I can do something else.
Now, the minutes for the agenda for the October 9th meeting has been circulated. Are there? I
Is that a
second.
motion?
That's
Yes,
a
it is.
motion, and I second it. Is there any discussion of the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
So approved. We have the minutes of the September 4th, 2025 meeting.
I move that we accept the minutes from September 4th, 2025.
I second that motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So approved. Are there any announcements? Okay, Dan, would you like to start your report?
I would. I'm going to try and put it on the screen. Give me another couple of seconds.
Wait, your day.
Right.
Here we go.
Confirmed.
All right.
That's all right.
Let's see if this helps. Okay. Waves. And now hopefully it will display my PowerPoint. Does not. Okay. Well, do you have a copy of it in front of you?
We do.
So let's proceed like that, if that's all right.
Okay.
And we can describe it to others. Registrar's report for October 9th, 2025. I have in this report some statistical reports, budgetary reports, a list of ongoing projects, and a couple of announcements. Registrar counts, registrant counts by locality. The total number of registrants in the locality as of 10/2 is 57,560. Of those, 54,118 are active, 3,442 are inactive. Of the overall count of 57,560, I have 626 that are marked as military, 133 that are marked as overseas, and 110 that are marked as federal only. Any questions on that?
Is 0203 pass? Is that,
0203 is,
Greater Brookville?
yes, the newer one, yes.
Okay, and then 0204, is that passed?
Yes, 204 is passed.
David and I were having a discussion about which were our smallest precincts.
Yep, and two are,
Okay, and we have 402.
331 is Lynchburg, West Lynchburg campus. 31.
Yes, 31 is West Lynchburg Baptist. Okay, moving on to,
okay. Locality statistics for this month. Once again, this report simply tracks where we started at the month and where we ended at the month. The most interesting column, of course, is the net change at the almost to the far right. We have an uptick in 102, 201, 302. Not surprising, actually, I was looking for a bigger uptick in 302 because that's our Liberty precinct. We want to make sure we get everybody registered there ahead of time. But anyway, 305 and 401 are also, well, sorry, 404 are our biggest upticks in registration. And that number puts us over 5,000 in 401, over 5,000 in 201, over 5,000 in 101. And as you're aware, in the next presidential, if we get more than 4,000 voters actually voting in those precincts, we will need to, any of the precincts, but those are the most likely, to look at what we do in terms of reducing the number of voters in precincts to less than 5,000. So, any questions on this information? Okay, Registrar Department budget, pages 1, 2, and 3. Page 1 talks about the registrar's portion. Page 2, mostly about the registrar's portion, also about the electoral board's portion. The number that's probably the most important on these 3 pages, third page kind of gives us a summary, is that we are right now about 18% of the overall budget, which is about on track, maybe a point above, but about on track where we should be for the year. As you know, we've had discussions about the registrar's budget and some potential need for additional funding before we get to the end of the fiscal year. It depends somewhat whether we have a primary election coming up in June before the end of the fiscal year. It also depends on some of the personnel things that we're going to have to sort through. And also we have some software purchases, I think, that we were discussing, that if we do decide to go forward, we would need to include that in our budget. That could well mean a budget request needs to be made in the third quarter. I've already had a conversation with a couple of council members, kind of letting them know that this might be coming down the pike. Without all the details I just mentioned there, the details that we'll have to give, make that request if we do. But anyway, that's where we stand on the budget. Any questions on any specific item here?
good. Okay,
Okay. All right, David, you asked for an absentee ballot status, just to kind of level set where we're at.
yes,
So we sent out on 9/20 to our absentee ballot vendor 3,368 ballots. We also have been sending additional ballots. I updated the number here just today. It's moved from 148 up to 210. So that number should be amended. And that will update our total absentee ballots by another 50, another 60 or so voters. And then what we've got returned today, that number has upped again. That's also, instead of 790, it's now 1291.
1291.
Yeah, yeah.
So a third of our absentee ballots will come back.
Yes, and that's actually good. I mean, that's a healthy number, which,
Right, this early.
yeah, it's earlier than some. I always harp on the message, and I send this out where I send to the city to distribute, to tell everybody to put their ballot back in right away, don't delay, and maybe that message is getting through, hopefully. I do have 111 of the ballots I sent out that are undeliverable, 29 were surrendered, mostly for early voting. And I have right now about 1,150 of those 1,291 that are are in the processing protocol. I expect about a 65% turn rate based on previous elections. And so I expect the cap will need to be prepared to vote about 2,500 or so ballots. Okay.
Excellent.
All right. If no questions on that, I'll go to early voting. I have a page in here of early voting status just to kind of let you know how this has been looking. We have about a third of the early voting days completed, maybe a little bit more than that now. I expected about 25%, about a quarter of the voters to come in early voting. That was about 8,600 voters. We are tracking just slightly below what I expected, the 25% versus the 33%. But it is an average of about 197 voters per day. So it is continuing to kind of, move right along. And you can see I put a little chart here just to kind of give you a visual. And on the left, you have a layout of how many voters per day, and even broken down how many voters per hour. So that gives you a sense of how busy the hourly total is. Right now, the total at the end, I took one more number for 10-8, that was yesterday, and the total number of voters is 2682, early voting as of yesterday. I anticipate that we will need to empty the early voting ballot box by 10/17, that's end of next week. If our voting track, if it continues at 197 or so per day, and that means that we'll get our first tranche of early voting ballots out there maybe next week, and or some day or two on either side, maybe that. And we'll need to let the party chairs and candidates know when we do that extraction. Any questions on this?
It looks like the numbers per day, the voters per day, the first 3 days were pretty good, and then it started to kind of tend downward.
Yep.
The occasional pop up. But do you anticipate that we will get a surge of voters someplace during the remainder of early voting?
I mean, I think people tend to vote early and late, right? There's they vote beginning of early voting and toward the end of early voting. So remember, we have 2 Saturdays at the end of this cycle, October 25th and November 1st. And so that's an additional day in the cycle as opposed to Monday through Friday. So I do think that it'll tick upward at the end. That's partially why I suggest that we maybe make the decision to pull the ballots around end of next week. That way we'll have enough clearance. We'll get through the end of the voting period without having to do another cycle, I think. Okay. Other questions on that? Okay, moving on to election of the ballot order. As you know, we discussed this a little bit offline, but this is so you have something to formally ratify. The ballot order, essentially, I ticked up by about 0.5%, and that the turnout expectation by 0.5%. That was just to give us a little more clearance. That is not too much more expensive, maybe a couple $100 more expensive than where we were. But I think it's, gives us a little bit of clearance to make sure that we're not going to run out of ballots. My actual election day ballot order is in the green column on the right-hand side. You'll notice I did highlight 302, and I anticipate that we are likely to have 900 voters in that precinct. That's based on a 27% turnout rate in a previous election. I think that turnout rate could be low, so that's why I went ahead and bumped that number up. I did order 1,500 ballots for that, just to give us a couple hundred ballots clearance in case we get a lot of same-day registrations, because that is the wild card in particular in that precinct. So that's just a bit of a safety measure that I put into there. But the end of it essentially is about 20,500 ballots for our order. That order is expected to arrive Friday, so I expect we will need to check them in Friday or the latest Monday.
Next Friday?
No, actually tomorrow. That's what they said anyway. Yeah, we'll see, but that's what they said. They told me that yesterday. So, and the final actual ballot order is about 29,000 ballots, 100 ballots for the whole election.
Okay, good.
Okay. Ongoing projects, we closed a couple things out and we opened up a couple new ones. I think we still have sitting on our plate, kind of finalizing our segregation of duties document. We also have our page program. I know Trish has been working on that, but I don't know if you have anything you want to comment about. I'm sorry, my card may go on. Sorry about that.
No, it's still a work in progress, working with Beacon of Hope, so.
Okay, we can help. Okay.
Good.
Backup precinct paperwork update. We still have a couple of polling places, I think maybe 2 that we would like to use as, secondary places. I've got 3 executed. I've got the school district on board, so that covers a few of them. But I still have maybe 2 places that I haven't got any updated paperwork. So that's still in play. A couple new items on the list. I'm sorry, you have a question there? Or are you okay?
I'm laughing at the way.
Yes, so in the registrar's office, and of course the train station as well, because they share, utilities, the boiler is shot, apparently. So I guess they went to turn it on this winter or for this fall and found out it wasn't working. And so the supplemental information to that was the chiller was still working. So we got them to turn off the chiller anyway for when we don't need the air conditioning. But the situation is in temporary, shall we say, temporary mode. We have some heaters, some electric heaters, and they've given us those to use. So in the event that it gets colder than it is now, we may be relying on those at least on a temporary basis. I did get good news, which I at first was a little skeptical of, that they think they will get this done within the next 2 weeks. They have the boiler parts on order and they're going to come in and get it installed, they tell me, next week. So hopefully that timeline holds and this will be off our list of items to keep track of. Second item that we opened up on this month was the chief deputy registrar. Department of Elections requested that every registrar office designate 1 deputy registrar as chief deputy registrar to take over during an incapacity of the registrar. Now, there's no state funding coming to help with this. They just want a label and basically to cover their area in case a registrar has a problem like I did during the last election. So what we've done here is I've talked to HR about this. Their recommendation is that we create a new job description, that we open a role, and then people would apply for that role, and we would make a selection based on that process. That's a normal HR process. Now the piece of this that's a little more open right now is what is the salary for a chief deputy registrar. And that's something I'm going to have to work with HR on. There is a questionnaire that gets filled out to help describe the duties and the level of duties. And that ultimately will go back to HR to consider the range of everything else that we do in the city to come up with that salary range. So that's in process. Realistically, I don't know that we'll get this finished before the election takes place, but it's something that's in process and we will try to get sorted out as soon as HR can help us with this. Last item on the thing is also a new one. We've had alarm system problems for a little while, where we get these trouble alarms and these spurious alarms that when someone comes and checks, it doesn't seem to be anything actually wrong. We got a couple of them over the weekend that got really cold. That kind of triggered me to ask our building maintenance team to go throughout all the sensors that we have and replace the batteries, because I think that the problem that we've experienced was more related to old batteries and the sensors than probably anything else. That's a hypothesis. So they went through and they replaced all the batteries, and now we're going to see if we still have any problems. I could have had the vendor come out and do that, but actually that cost us some money. So since the building maintenance team was willing to do that, I figured that was worth trying before we do a deeper dive on the system. And that was the last of my ongoing projects. Any questions on those?
That's a good report.
I have a couple of announcements. I'll make those if you'd like at this point. Early voting for the general election closes on November 1st. That's the last Saturday before the election. You can still vote on election day after this, but you must go to your assigned precinct. Last day to register to vote or request an absentee ballot is October 4th. In previous elections, the last day to register to vote and the absentee ballot were separated. Now they've moved both of those deadlines over to 11 days before the election, and that's October 24th. Canvass begins on November 5th, the day after the election. I put 9:30, but we decided it was 10, right? 10 was our actual ballot, so that's an edit there. Absentee ballots must be turned in by election day and postmarked by election day and received by noon on Friday. So I always encourage people to get their absentee ballot back immediately, because the post office is not your friend. Holiday testing was done back on October 7th, a couple of days ago. We will be closed to the public on November 11th in observance of Veterans Day. That is in the middle of canvass. The electoral board still has to figure out whether or not we will need to be working in the office that day. And if the board needs the staff in the office, we'll be in the office, but we'll be closed to the public. CAP sessions for November 4th will begin on 10/23. And we have, I think, 6 or 7 of those scheduled. So that's in play. And the party chairs and candidates have been notified. Department of Elections advised the risk limiting audit will be conducted for selected localities. I believe this is for the House race. Right. Okay, and then the last page is just a calendar. I don't think there should be anything unfamiliar to you on here, but if there's any questions about what we have on one date, please review that and let us know.
You got open for early voting on November 3rd. It should be November 1st.
Okay.
The early voting is closed on the 3rd. That's Monday
On the calendar.
on the calendar.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at November 3rd.
Open for early voting. You get November 3, and it should be November 1.
I don't have November 3 either, so we're right.
Well, maybe that's the CAP schedule. My bad.
Yes, cap schedule.
November 3rd.
Yeah, that Monday is a mandatory cap day.
You should put a line down when you got 2 separate columns.
Sorry about that. Yeah, that's a mandatory cap
I
day.
look at what it is, and I look at when it is.
Yeah, if they don't finish. Sorry, it's scary.
Scared me too.
Okay, that's my report.
So we have an L&A for poll books on the 2nd.
Yes, so the Sunday before the election, every election, we have an LNA testing for poll books. We always announce it, nobody ever really comes. It's a long day because we come in the morning and we go through all the 75 poll books and make sure that they have the poll book loaded on them properly, and then we check whether it's doing that, and the poll book is working. So it takes us a while.
Right, are we electoral board members there?
If you wish to be, you may certainly come. We would certainly love to have you.
I seem not to have remembered doing this in the past.
Like I said, people don't usually show up. I think Jeff, you showed up, right? Jeff comes over.
Jeff shows up for everything. He shows us up.
Yeah,
I showed up one Sunday.
I think occasionally. But you're welcome to come, welcome to have your participation. Even if you don't come, we will still do the poll books and make sure that they're right, get them ready.
I think I even had my tie on from church.
Yeah, you probably did.
On the RLA,
Yes.
I know I have a potential conflict on the 20th. As I remember our last RLA, we just did it in one day.
Yeah, I expect it's gonna be one day, maybe they haven't selected the day, maybe that's what they're telling us. No, I think it is, they publish to us what we have to do is one day, and the next day we actually do it. So with the uses Arlo, which is that software that
Right.
kind
You
of
have
magically figures out what ballot you're supposed to
Except
touch.
that one, we went through the ballots using our load that.
We did, so the Arlo will tell us, we submit the ballot manifest, so
Right.
every precinct's gonna have to give you the ballot count. That goes up, Arlo then picks what ballots we do, and then the next day, we actually take it with the scale and.
Well, I'll have to balance that and figure out how to do it.
So, risk was any not, it's gonna be on 20th?
So I think, like I said, my recollection is, they say the 20th because we have to make sure we've got all the information up in Arlo on the 20th.
Yeah, I'll look at the last time.
Yeah, and then the next day, they tell us what ballots we have.
Okay.
Betty, you may have to be here for this.
Okay.
It's one from each party, which is.
No, it's the week before, but
And I'll make her finish.
I'm sure you can change parties.
That's very good.
Okay, moving on. Do we have any unfinished business? Hearing none, let's move into new business. You've talked about the ballot order, which has already been in place, so there's no action to be taken here.
unless we just need to approve his action.
I don't think we even need to approve it.
The ballot.
It's a ballot order.
Ballot order. We did, well, when Dan and I were talking, he wanted to go ahead and get the ballot order done and then let us approve at this meeting. If we don't need to do it, then we don't need to do it. That's the only reason I mentioned it, because Dan wanted.
I'm happy with whatever you guys decide, I just want to make sure that it's
I'm
all.
not sure it's, legislatively, I'm not sure it's one of our authority items.
Well, in that case, I'm fine. It's already done and
I think you could offer a motion that we accept the ballot. We accept what Dan has done.
however you want to word it, I'll be happy to make it.
Well, I'll word it. I move that we accept the Dan's report on the ballot.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
All right.
It is so passed. Appointment of election officers. We have a list of candidates for election officers that Madam Secretary has provided. We have 11 new candidates. Do I hear a motion on those?
I'll make a motion
Go ahead. I didn't make the
to
motion.
appoint these 11 candidates, which I can announce that 10 of them are brand new to the election process, so that's good. One is a returning election officer. And also, in case you've been tracking how many Democrats versus Republican election officers we had, some people had been emailing and asking to switch. Usually it's to switch from non-affiliated to represent one of the parties, but this report. So as of, once we appoint these 11, there'll be 50 Democratic election officers and 56 Republicans and 54 who are non-affiliated. 160 altogether if we could just get them to say they'll work.
You have
So,
to be, you have to be named Austin.
right, that's what I said. A different name here. Okay, so I'll make a motion that we appoint these 11 applicants to a term that will expire at the end of February next year.
So when you term, that expires the end of February.
Half a year, but yeah.
I second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. It is so passed. Possibility of a post-election risk limited audit. We discussed that very briefly. Is there anything else we need to discuss in that context? You have the manifest set up.
Well, yeah, I agree. The data frame prepared, and then we'll put into that frame the number of ballots that are going to be in each tranche, one per precinct, one for, it's probably two for early voting because of how we're going to have to clear the ballot box, one for absentees, one for post-election, and then one for provisional, I imagine. I think that's how they're going to want it. They do now, we're going to break up provisional by precinct, but I still think that's going to be one tranche by itself.
Is every unit all 134 political entities going to have to do it, or they're going to pick one? So we
They're going to pick some. I don't know if it was one. but-
No, they'll pick some, and
Yeah.
it's just the House of Delegates race.
Yeah. So I think we have a bit of a luck of the draw, so to speak, of whether or not we get.
So there are, I think, 92 contested House of Delegate races in the state this year.
One of the largest stars in contested, so.
So it's a luck of the draw, they say. Okay, no action to be taken on that.
Okay.
Any further new business?
Sir.
Any public comments? Any public members? Mr. Rosner.
Okay, I'm Jeff Rosner, Lynchburg Democratic Committee. On October 7th, Brennan Center for Justice at New York University reported that the Federal Department of Justice has requested voter data from 38 states, including Virginia, and that the requests include partial Social Security numbers. On September 11th, Democracy Docket reported a Department of Homeland Security confirmation that DOJ is sharing voter data with it. On September 10th, Virginia TV station WVEC reported that the Virginia Elections Department had not yet responded to the DOJ request. The minutes of the last meeting of the Virginia State Board of Elections on September 17th do not mention this matter. All right, now, the Code of Virginia, Section 24.2-407.1, under voter registration, provides for a prohibition on disclosure of Social Security numbers or parts thereof. It lists some exceptions, but those exceptions do not include DOJ or Homeland Security. Although the response to this request is at the state level, it should also be of concern to local electoral boards and registrars because they obtain data from voters and share in the responsibility for protecting that data. The response to this request should also be of concern to individual voters. The Privacy Act notice on Virginia voter registration application says, quote, "Your Social Security number will appear on reports produced only for official use by voter registration and election officials, for jury selection purposes by courts, and all lawful purposes," unquote. Under Section 24.2-407.1, those purposes do not include disclosure to the federal departments of Justice or Homeland Security. If voters ask registrars or registrar staff whether their Social Security numbers will be kept private, what will they be told? Will this issue discourage people from registering to vote? And finally, I do also have a question. I would also like to ask if the board members or the registrar have any information on the current status of the DOJ request.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other comments? There being none, what we need to do now is to go into closed session. So we must ask our assorted members of the public, and I didn't say sorted, I said assorted.
I already. It was solved.
To leave us now, everything is goes. Thank you.
Always.
I should pause recording because you're going to.
Yes.
And then you're going to finish up. So I'm going to pause recording.